It's Tuesday, the 7th of May, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1, Qantas has agreed to pay $120 million following a claim brought by the regulator that the national carrier sold tickets for flights that were already cancelled.
The deal means customers on cancelled flights will receive up to $450 in compensation after Qantas admitted it had misled passengers. But the total payout is less than initially forecast when the ACCC launched its legal action against the airline. Qantas will pay between $225 and $450 to 86,000 affected customers, a total of around $20 million, and also will pay a $100 million fine. The competition watchdog alleged Qantas sold airfares on 8,000 flights it already knew it had cancelled. Qantas argued it was selling a bundle of rights to flights rather than an airfare. Yesterday, they would agreed to the claim of misleading conduct. CEO Vanessa Hudson apologised for the behaviour. Those affected have already been refunded or were booked on alternate flights, but they'll also receive this additional compensation, Michael.
Sean, it really isn't a good look, is it, for a major company, particularly one as kind of prestigious as Qantas, to admit that it misled customers. What do you think's behind the deal with the ACCC?
It's definitely a bad look, but it should end the PR disaster for Qantas that has continued ever since the so-called ghost flights discussion emerged. Maybe $120 million is worth that. Ms. Hudson, of course, is a new CEO. She wasn't running the business when it happened, so she can allow customers and regulators and politicians to blame her predecessor, Alan Joyce. It is part of her strategy generally, not the blaming of Alan Joyce, just overcoming this issue of trying to win back customers and favour. Now, that has included more money for call centres, a new loyalty program, better processes when flights are delayed or cancelled. The deal certainly sends a message to other larger companies, though, to be wary of what they say. ACCC Chair Gina Cass-Gottlieb yesterday said the deal signals to every large company that the competition watchdog will hold them accountable to communicate early, accurately and honestly with customers.
Sean, on to story number 2 now, and Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers is starting to suggest that next week's budget might be expansionary, triggering a few fears about its impact on inflation.
Yes, he told the media in Canberra yesterday that the budget isn't the time for scorched earth austerity. He said when people are doing it tough, it isn't the time to slash and burn. He went on to warn against simplistic claims about the budget being expansionary or contractionary, saying many measures were designed to reduce inflation. All that sounds like he's preparing the way for maybe even a budget deficit next week. But he then added that at the front end, presumably the next 12 months, it'll be about inflation, after that growth. At the same press conference, Finance Minister Katie Gallagher said next week's budget will include significant funding of government services to address customer backlogs, modernise digital infrastructure and reduce dependency on expensive outsourced labour.
Story number 3, Westpac has announced a 16% fall in its first half earnings to $3.3 billion as competition in the mortgage market hurts profit margins.
The country's third largest bank also announced a 15-cent per share fully franked dividend on top of its 75 cents a share interim dividend. The bank also lifted its share buyback by $1 billion to $2.5 billion. All that demonstrates that Westpac is trying to put money back into shareholders' hands, including all-important franking credits. The cash profit was slightly better than expected and reflected a drop in its net interest margins. That's the difference between what it earns on a loan and pays on a deposit, and lower than expected bad debts. The consumer bank was crunched through competition in the mortgage market, but earnings on the business banking side did pretty well. Westpac's share price closed up 2.5% yesterday, or a bit more. Boss Peter King said the economy is on track for a soft landing, though interest rates will remain higher for longer. Of course, we've got the Reserve Bank board meeting yesterday and today. We'll find out what's going to happen on interest rates at 2:30 today.
Sean, story number 4, Telstra has delayed the shutdown of its 3G network amid concerns that it may stop customers across Australia from making emergency calls.
The national telco says it will now switch off the network on August 31, 2 months later than planned, to ensure customers have upgraded their devices. About 400,000 devices in Australia are 4G enabled, but still rely on the 3G network to make 000 calls. Federal Communications Minister Michelle Rowland warned customers their device may appear to be operating normally after August. However, she said if they don't upgrade, customers will find out it isn't working properly only when they make an emergency call. Affected devices include mobile phones, landlines, farm machinery and medical devices.
Sean, story number 5. I know you're a bit of a movie buff, so it's no surprise that this story has made it into the Fast Five today. There are fears that there won't be a truly blockbuster movie this northern summer, one that takes in more than $1 billion US, with cinema attendance about 1/3 what it was pre-COVID.
There have been a few hits in the past couple of years. Barbie, Oppenheimer, Avatar, The Way of Water, but not much more. The latest hopeful, The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, filmed in Sydney, or much of it was filmed in Sydney. It brought in less than $29 million on its first weekend just past. Now, if no film passes $1 billion US this summer, it'll be the first time that's happened in almost 2 decades, apart from 2020, which of course was COVID affected. Many experts are blaming streaming services, which took over during COVID and really hasn't let up. The cost of Netflix per month is about the same as the cost of a ticket to the movies. Of this year's Northern Summer releases, only Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine are expected to be hits.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 7th of May, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed, wherever you listen to podcasts, or at fearandgreed.com.au, which is where you can also sign up for our free weekly newsletter, which comes out every Wednesday. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.